The Emilia Romagna Grand Prix provided us with a magical race. It was the first European race of the season and it did not disappoint. From wet weather, red flags and first lap drama, this race had it all. So let's take you through the good, the bad and the ugly of the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Before we begin, I would like to welcome you to Forward Motorsports, your pit stop for all things motorsport related. The good, Grand Slam history. So in Australia, Charles Leclerc won his first career Grand Slam. A Grand Slam is when a driver starts on pole, he leads every lap and he wins the race along with having the fastest lap of the race. At Imola, Max Verstappen joined in on this party. Although it's not Max's first Grand Slam, it's a brand new Formula 1 record in the sense that it's the first time in Formula 1 history that there have been consecutive Grand Slams for different constructors and drivers. Charles Leclerc in Australia and Max Verstappen in Imola. This just goes to show you about the incredible form that both the drivers are in as the title battle heats up this season. This race was particularly great for Red Bull, who recorded their first 1-2 finish since Malaysia in 2016. The bad, Sainz is bad luck. While Red Bull had a great weekend, Ferrari had a really bad weekend. And while Ferrari have been enjoying a great start to the season, currently leading the World Championship, it hasn't been easy for Carlos Sainz. Spanish driver suffered in the first lap of the race when he had contact with Daniel Ricciardo and he was in the gravel trap and he couldn't take part in the race anymore. This means that Carlos Sainz has just completed one lap in his last two races. That also ended his 31 race finishing streak before that. So that means he went a complete season finishing races. However, this comes right after Sainz also extended his contract with Ferrari until 2024, so he was in the limelight for all the wrong reasons. However, he will need to regain his form in order to help Ferrari hold off Red Bull if they want to have a successful season this year. The good, all of the teams scored points. With Sebastian Vettel in P8 and Lance Stroll in P10, Aston Martin scored their first points of the 2022 season. So this means that after 4 races, all of the 10 teams have now scored. That's something that hasn't happened since the 2018 season. But this is exactly what the regulations intended to do. Teams are now fighting closer than ever and they are looking stronger on different tracks. For example, Aston Martin managed to turn around a dismal weekend in Australia into a great one in Imola. And McLaren has done the same from the first race in Bahrain to the current race in Imola. They have had great improvements. The bad, Mercedes struggles. Mercedes were clearly not running for the win at the Imola Grand Prix. The drivers were struggling all weekend long and they almost got knocked out of the first session of qualifying. The cars still struggle with porpoising and various other issues. During the race on Sunday, Lewis Hamilton also got lapped by Max Verstappen. I'm pretty sure that's a new low for Mercedes. However, George Russell has been constantly fighting for the top and managed to finish in the top 5 in all of the races. But the Mercedes cars still look like they have potential. You have to remember that these are the 8th-time World Constructors' Championship. And who knows, after a few rounds of upgrades, we just might see them battle it out in the front again. So now we get to the ugly. The ugly point was the DRS. So there was a certain moment during the race, 5 to 6 cars were running really close to each other. It was a battle in the midfield from around P8 to around P14, and you had drivers such as Stroll, Tsunoda, Gasly, and even Hamilton who were following each other very closely within a second. However, even though the gap between them was less than a second most of the times, they could not use DRS as it was not enabled by the race control. So DRS is basically drag reduction system. It's when the back wing of the car opens up and that reduces the drag on the car, and the cars can go about 20 to 30 kilometers faster than your rival in front of you. So with drivers unable to use DRS, it became really tough for them to pass. And during the race, commentators, fans who were saying that DRS should have been enabled, like racing was boring and stuff like that. You also had drivers such as Ocon and Ricciardo who raised their concern how it was impossible to overtake without DRS. Sebastian Vettel and Alex Albon were quick to point out that not enabling DRS was one of the best things to do. It's important to note that the track was drying out. The track was not completely dry, so race control waited for a few laps before enabling DRS. Albon said that race directors were probably thinking of last year's high-speed crash between Valtteri Bottas and George Russell. The Imola circuit has been witness to some dark days in Formula 1 history. You had the terrible weekend in 1994 when you saw 2 drivers pass away at the circuit. So it would be only fair that race control chose safety at an iconic circuit like this. So that was the good, bad and ugly moments of the Formula 1 Imola Grand Prix. If you think we've missed anything, let us know in the comments below. And as always, stay tuned to Forward Motorsports for more motorsport updates.